Okay, so now to find out who would be, go to Switzerland. Now, their last war was with who? The French, right? Okay, now, who did the New Orleans Purchase? Who was the holder of the protectorate agreement? The French. That's the same people that the last war of the Swiss was, right? They sold New Orleans protectorate right to England. England decided that because we had left our villages and our homesteads to go fight the Seminole War, they declared everything vacant and abandoned. So we got a sidebar for a second because I got to give you a little back reference. With the Etruscan Moors didn't only settle Spain. They settled Rome, which is the capital of Italy, or they conquered it. And they conquered Paris. Paris was the city of Isis. Isis, it's actually the Parthodon of Isis is the name of the city. Who built the Eiffel Tower? The French, right? Because it's right there in France. Same person that gave us the Statue of Liberty, right? Okay, now remember, the last Swiss war, they were fighting the so-called French. The Spanish, the Dutch, Portuguese, and the English, all of these countries are in the process of purging the Moors from Europe to send them to the Al Maghrib. The people who's still running the show would stay out of all of the wars because they're the financiers. Okay, now, the French turned tail from the Americas and left it with the English. They got their ass kicked in Detroit by Chief Pontiac, right? They what you call, that's called constricting. Military force is constricting now. That means everybody's drawing back home. If you know military history, not unless you are victorious do you call your troops home. You fight to the death. And the only way you don't fight to the death is when you're down to the last soldier and you got to save at least one. The trade unions was put together, predicated upon the what we call skilled trades workers. The skilled trades was taught hands-on and passed down normally in families. And it was a certain amount of control they have over their life by learning the skilled trade. This is what makes their union slightly different than a regular union. So Big Mama used to keep track of which of her sons to call for specialty work. These formations is what they call workers' guilds, right? Workers' guilds have to be communicated across all other guilds so that they don't overstep their boundaries. So they form a fraternal brotherhood of guilds, and they call it a workers' union. The unified workers come together to control their life and their destiny. The goal of a guild is to be able to control the inflation rate that is put on your labor. The only way to control the inflation rate is you have to have negotiating power with the banks, that's the developers who sets up corporations to be operators of their asset. That's how it worked. Lewis and Clark was land surveyors. They came in to, it was after the Louisiana Purchase, somebody had to traverse the land and map it out. And during the course, they have to keep a star map and a diary. Star map is going to tell them the extent of the land and the amount of time it takes to traverse the land and read these stars. You can read the whole lay of the land. So they know about the Rocky Mountains, all the way into the northwestern ports of New Orleans, of Washington and Oregon, right? All the way into the tail of Alaska. So now They stopped, I think, in either Oregon or Washington State. And then they turned around and came back. The return trip, you mark your days, keep your diary, and you map the stars on your trip back to, and this is called self-correcting in the science. Correct itself if one of your days is off, it'll self-correct on the return trip if you keep accurate position. They need a navigator. Wasn't no pale skinned navigators at that time. Christopher Columbus' navigator name was Peter del Negro or Pietro del Negro. Peter the nigger or Peter the black. They look like us, but they ain't us. Now remember what's taking place in Europe when Christopher Columbus is getting ready to make his journey. They are gathering resources from some Jews to finance the voyage. In Europe, Jews has nothing to do with Hebrews, Judaism, or anybody from the Middle East. The Jews is the reference to the blackamoors who's running the show. Pietro del Negro being a navigator, in order for him to be a navigator at that time, was well aware of the Americas. Okay, so what's Christopher Columbus doing when he leaves? What is his intended purpose? This is what he tell Ferdinand and Isabella. I know a better trade route to somewhere called India, but at this time, India doesn't exist, right? And when I make this other voyage across the Pillars of Hercules is where Atlantis is, right? Okay, now he's telling her, when I make this voyage, I'll find a shortcut to India and set up trade routes. India don't exist yet. There's no country at this time called India. He have to have a navigator for his ship. At the time, only the Etruscan Moors were navigators. So that means that they already know what's out there beyond the sea.